Hello everyone, welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today is Tuesday, so this is going to be our waivers for week 14. I would assume most of your leagues are in the playoffs now at this point. Most of them are in the first week. Most playoffs are typically ran weeks 14, 15, and 16. You'll have some leagues that run into week 17. But if you guys are watching this, if you're in the playoffs, congratulations to you guys. Hopefully my videos have helped you out a little bit this year. Once again, if you guys have any questions at all, always feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments at my email, coachcraigsports@gmail.com, on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, or on the Coach Craig Sports Facebook page. But without further ado, let's get into it. We'll be talking some waiver wire guys. We're going to start off with the quarterbacks this week. And we got Baker Mayfield. Last week he was 25 out of 33, 334 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 5 rushing yards, 37.46 fantasy points. All the quarterbacks are going to be in 6-point per passing touchdown format. He's owned in 21% of ESPN leagues, 38% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Ravens in Week 14. Not the best matchup there, but the next couple of weeks are pretty good for him. So if you're looking for a guy to kind of stash for the next 2 weeks, he could pay off there since he goes against the Giants and the Jets. But Baltimore is not the greatest matchup this week, but you could definitely do a lot worse as well. Then we're going to move over to Phillip Rivers. And Phillip Rivers was 27 out of 35, 285 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, -2 rushing yards, 23.2 fantasy points. And he is owned in 17% ESPN leagues, 40% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Raiders this week. Very, very good matchup. So if you're looking for somebody to stream this week, he could definitely be your guy. And then we got to talk about my buddy Jalen Hurts. 5 out of 12. 109 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 29 rushing yards after coming in relief of Carson Wentz last week, 11.26 fantasy points. I just take those numbers with a grain of salt. It was only like 3 drives, so he's definitely going to have more opportunity this week. He's owned in 1% of ESPN leagues, 3% of Yahoo leagues. He's definitely a guy that I would pick up. I'm not sure I'd start him this week, but that rushing upside in a quarterback position is it's just something that's really tempting. You saw Lamar Jackson, what he's been able to do by running the ball. Jalen Hurts gives you that rushing upside and a little bit of passing upside as well. He goes against the Saints this week, so it's not the best matchup in the world, but he's definitely somebody you want to stash. Then the next 2 weeks they play Carolina and Dallas, and they should be both good matchups for him. He definitely could win you a championship. Then we'll talk about Mitchell Trubisky, and he was 26 out of 34, 267 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 6 rushing yards, and he had 15.28 fantasy points, owned in 21% of ESPN leagues, 13% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Texans this week, so it's a very good matchup for him. I know I'm a Texans fan. Our defense is nothing special. We lost Bradley Roby, so it should be a pretty good day for Trubisky as long as he avoids the turnovers. Then next week he goes up against the Vikings and then Jacksonville. So these are all good matchups for Mitchell Trubisky. I know it sounds bad, but you probably don't want to trust him in general. But he could end up winning you a championship this year. Then we'll get over to the running back position. We'll start with some of the guys that are owned a little bit more first. And this is the first one. Philip Lindsay played on 39% of snaps, 14 carries for 26 yards against the Chiefs. Not a very good day overall there, 2.6 fantasy points. Owned in 45% of ESPN leagues, 44% of Yahoo leagues. He definitely should be owned in more leagues at this point in time. Goes against Carolina this week. Very, very good matchup. I would still expect Melvin Gordon to get the workload. But if it gets back to 50-50 again, if Melvin Gordon would somehow get hurt, this is one of your high value handcuffs. And they play Carolina this week, Buffalo, and then the Chargers. The three of the worst teams against the run this year, especially for fantasy running backs. So definitely could be a lot of opportunity there. Guy to pick up, stash on your bench, and then if something were to happen to Melvin Gordon, you have an instant plug-and-play starter. This one pains me because I am not a Cam Akers fan, but we're going to mention his name on here. And he played on 63% of snaps, 21 carries, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 target, 1 reception, 22 yards, 16.4 fantasy points, owned in 36% of ESPN leagues, 53% of Yahoo leagues. He goes against the Patriots this week. Should be a pretty good matchup as they haven't been as good against the run this year, but they've been hit or miss on defense throughout the year. And then the next 2 weeks he goes against the Jets and the Seahawks. And both those matchups should be pretty good. But the thing I don't trust with Cam Akers here is I think this is still going to be a split backfield. I know he got most of the snaps last week, but Darrell Henderson went out of the game for a while. He came back in. He had 2 really explosive plays on this game. In my mind, Henderson is the better back. I'm not personally attacking Cam Akers or anything, but if he gets the opportunity, Cam Akers could definitely pay off in fantasy, but he's more of a guy that I want to stash at this point in time than actually try to plug and play this week because I don't think it's going to pay off for you. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. Then we got my buddy Jeff Wilson Jr., and he actually played on 46% of snaps last night. Raheem Mostert was at 44%. They're pretty much splitting the load once again. I think McKinnon was in for 2 plays, and then for some reason Tevin Coleman got 2 carries. I think he lost 10 yards on 2 carries. So honestly, he shouldn't be getting the ball. But that's a whole nother story. But Jeff Wilson Jr., 7 carries, 47 yards. Pretty good there. 5 targets, 2 receptions, 12 yards. Not bad there. He has a little bit of a passing element there as well, or pass catching element there as well. But he had 7.9 fantasy points, only owned in 3% of ESPN leagues, 6% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Washington this week. Not the best matchup in the world, but definitely a guy that you want to pick up, have on your bench, and then if something would happen to Mostert again, this is the guy. And then the next 2 weeks after that, they play the Cowboys and the Cardinals. Both of them should be very good matchups overall, especially in terms of running the ball. So it definitely could pay off for Wilson down the line. Then we got Ty Johnson. This is probably going to be the most talked about guy this week, honestly. And he's played on 63% of snaps. Frank Gore left on the second play of the game, had a concussion. If he doesn't play this week, Ty Johnson is a very good running back number 2, especially in PPR leagues. He had 22 carries for 104 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 13 yards, 19.7 fantasy points. Owned in less than 1% of ESPN leagues and 2% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Seattle this week. Should be a pretty good week for him overall. Seattle did struggle against Wayne Gallman last week. Then the Jets play the Rams and Cleveland after that. The Rams matchup's kind of tough. Cleveland could be all right matchup, but I would assume Frank Gore comes back in one of those weeks. So this could just be a 1 week type of guy. Then once again, we'll mention the key handcuff running backs. And we got Alexander Madison, 31%. And ESPN, 31% in Yahoo. He did have a appendectomy, I believe, so he might miss again this week. So I understand why people are kind of dropping him. You want to probably pivot to one of these other guys if they're available to you. Then we got Boston Scott, owned in 22% of ESPN leagues, 25% of Yahoo leagues. Tony Pollard, 20% of ESPN leagues, 18% of Yahoo leagues. Carlos Hyde, 23% of ESPN leagues, 32% of Yahoo leagues. And I added Adrian Peterson this week, because he's filled in nicely when DeAndre Swift's been out. Looks like Swift should be back this week, but if he's not, consider picking up Adrian Peterson. He's owned in 36% of ESPN leagues, 48% of Yahoo leagues. And there's probably a good chance he gets dropped this week, especially if people think Swift's going to be back. I will mention one other running back, and it's probably not somebody you want to go after. His name is Peyton Barber. Antonio Gibson did get injured last night. Barber got the workload, but Barber's not somebody you want on your fantasy team. He's not going to help you win in any given week. Should be increase for J.D. McKissick, but he's more of the pass-catching running back, so I expect that to be kind of a 50-50 split. Well, we'll start out with the one that's probably the hottest in most videos on most websites this week, and that's Keke Coutee. 75% of snaps is what he played on. 9 targets, 8 receptions, 141 yards, 22.1 fantasy points. This is PPR scoring once again. 12% owned in ESPN, 27% owned in Yahoo. Pretty good chance he's out there. Played pretty well against a good Colts team. He goes against the Bears this week, and they have a pretty good defense, but you saw what Detroit did to them, so there's a chance Keke Coutee has another good game. Then we'll move over to my buddy, Tim Patrick. And he played on 89% of snaps, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 44 yards, a lot of 4s there. He didn't score 4 touchdowns, unfortunately. He only had 2. But he had 24.4 fantasy points, owned in 16% of ESPN leagues, 21% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Carolina this week. Very good matchup for him overall. And then he plays Buffalo and the Chargers the next couple of weeks. They should be pretty good matchups for him too as well. Tre'Davious White could be a little bit of a problem next week if they put him on Patrick. But definitely a guy you could plug and play this week for sure. Keke Coutee, we'll go back to his matchups real quick too. He had Chicago this week, then Indianapolis, then Cincinnati. So the best matchup in there is obviously Cincinnati at the end. But he did pretty well against the Colts last week, so he should fare fine again this week and next week. Then we'll move over to the Colts wide receivers. We got 2 of them on there. And first off, we got Michael Pittman Jr. Played on 84% of snaps, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 46 yards, or 9.6 fantasy points. Owned in 43% of ESPN leagues, 62% of Yahoo leagues. Decent chance he's still out there. Goes against the Raiders this week. Should be a pretty good matchup for him overall. And then the second one we got is T.Y. Hilton. Played on 62% of snaps this past week, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 110 yards, 1 touchdown, 25 fantasy points. Owned in 47% of ESPN leagues, 45% of Yahoo leagues. Pretty good chance he's out there. Goes against the Raiders as well this week. And then they have Houston and Pittsburgh after that. So they have a pretty good matchup for wide receivers overall going forward. Then we'll talk about another Texans wide receiver, and that is Mr. Chad Hansen. Played on 92% of snaps, so this is more than Keke Coutee even. 7 targets, 5 receptions, 101 yards. Honestly, he looked pretty good. I'm a Texans fan, like I've been saying. I watched the games. I was a fan of Chad Hansen coming out of college. He hasn't quite gotten the opportunity. He's kind of getting it now. I would not be surprised if he continues to do well. 15.1 fantasy points. He's literally owned in 0% of leagues. So he's available everywhere. Same matchups as a QT. Definitely a guy I would pick up, stash on your bench. If you're playing Dynasty and he's available in Dynasty, go grab him yesterday. Because this is a guy that could have some potential going forward this year and in the future, especially if he keeps playing at a good rate like this. Then we got Alan Lazard. We got to talk about him once again. So that snap rate percentage is a little bit off. That was last week's number, so he played on 69% of snaps this past week. He had 6 targets, 3 receptions for 50 yards, 8 fantasy points overall. Owned in 30% of ESPN leagues, 40% of Yahoo leagues. Decent chance he's still out there. Goes against the Lions this week. Should be a very good matchup for him. And then their remaining schedule is the Panthers and the Titans. They're all 3 games. They're very good matchups. Then we move over to the tight end position. We got Logan Thomas, and he played on 100% of the snaps once again this week. Hats out to him for that. It's definitely something you don't see from tight ends very often. But he had 9 targets, 9 receptions, 98 yards, 1 touchdown. This definitely was a career game for him so far in his career. Hopefully he's able to continue this going forward. But him and Alex Smith definitely have some good chemistry. He had 24.8 fantasy points, owned in 25% of ESPN leagues, 40% of Yahoo leagues. He goes against the 49ers this week, so that's the bad part. And the 49ers have been awesome against tight ends, so he's not a guy I really would want to play this week. But he's definitely somebody you could stash and play going forward. And then the next 2 weeks, they have Seattle and Carolina. Those are playable matchups, honestly, for Logan Thomas. Just this week with the 49ers is something I would avoid. Talk about somebody that's very underowned at this point in time, honestly. It's Cole Kmet. Played on 78% of snaps, had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 37 yards, 1 touchdown. 14.7 fantasy points. He's taken over. He's bypassed Jimmy Graham at this point in time. And Trubisky's actually been targeting him a little bit, so he's definitely a guy that you should probably roster. He's somebody you could try to play this week. I'm not sure he will definitely have that same type of week, but he is playing the Texans this week, so it is a good matchup. He's owned in 0.5% of ESPN leagues, 1% of Yahoo leagues, so he's available pretty much everywhere. Definitely somebody to consider streaming this week and moving forward. Let's see. So they play the Texans, the Vikings, and the Jaguars. All 3 games should be pretty positive for him. Then we got Dalton Schultz. He's obviously still playing tonight. So these are last week's numbers. Played on 86% of snaps, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 24 yards, 7.4 fantasy points. He's owned in 31% of ESPN leagues, 20% of Yahoo leagues. He goes against the Bengals this week, which is pretty much the best matchup you can get for tight ends. So he's pretty much a must start next week. If he's out there in your waivers, grab him. And this championship week, he also plays Philadelphia. Next week, like I've been saying, he plays San Francisco, so you're not going to want to play him in week 15. But definitely week 14, week 16, you can definitely play him for sure. Then last but not least, we got them defenses to consider this week. And we got Washington. They're owned in 41% of ESPN leagues, 24% of Yahoo leagues. They go against the 49ers this week, and the 49ers have had like 2 turnovers in pretty much every game in recent history. So there's definitely an opportunity for turnovers in this game. Washington played pretty tough against Pittsburgh, and they were able to force some turnovers there as well. Then we have Arizona, and they're owned in 21% of ESPN leagues, 20% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Giants this week. Colt McCoy still the starting quarterback. It's definitely a good matchup. If Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback, not quite as great as matchup though. I can't believe I'm really saying this, but the Dallas Cowboys, their defense, we're recommending them this week, and they're owned in 10% of ESPN leagues, 16% of Yahoo leagues. So it looks like some people were onto this and kind of stocked up ahead of time. But they are playing the Bengals this week. It's pretty much the best matchup you can have if you're a defense, because Cincinnati's so banged up. Their offensive line is bad. You know, they could be on Ryan Finley playing quarterback, so it's definitely a very positive matchup. And then last but not least, I kind of got a little bit of a sleeper one here. And this is Atlanta. It might be better for a DFS play than anything, but they're owned in 3% ESPN leagues, 2% of Yahoo leagues. And they've played better on defense lately. They've been getting turnovers. So it definitely could be a good matchup against the Chargers and Justin Herbert, who really struggled against the Patriots this week. But once again, these were the waiver picks that I have for this week. If you have any questions at all about waivers, please be sure to leave them in the comments. Who to pick up, who to drop, anything like that. I'm here for you guys, trying to help you as best that I can. But with that being said, if you guys liked and enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It helps build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, and that's one for you, the viewers, helping you guys with your fantasy football teams, helping you guys enjoy fantasy football more, and hopefully bringing home some championships in this 2020 season. And with that being said, if you are a new or current subscriber who is yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. We'll let you know every single time I post up a new video. Like I've been saying, post up about 5 videos a week, and Monday through Thursday, and then Saturday for the starts and sits for all the other matchups. This Friday, like I've been saying, I'm going to do that emergency quarterback video. Just a lot of great things coming up, especially this week. Also, be sure to check out the Podcasting Network. I write articles on there as well. We have a great team of writers. That link is down in the description below. And then last but not least, the 2 Point Podcast, my best friend and I, the podcast we started. We go over, we do a preview of each game for the week, and then we do a recap after the week has been played out. We just dropped the recap for week 13 this morning. If you guys haven't already checked that out, please be sure to do so down in the description as well. But with that being said, that's all I got for today's video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Hopefully this gave you some ideas for waiver pickups for this week and beyond. And good luck to you guys as you move into the playoffs. And with that being said, have a great rest of your day.